If you hear any like noise in the background, it is currently like raining, kind of torrentially.
Okay, let's try this.
Hi, my name is Jamila, and today is it's exciting for me, but like not for anyone else, I don't think. I am going to be showing you all the books that I'm getting rid of, aka all the books that I am giving to McKay's and hoping to receive a little something in return. I am very excited about this video and just excited about going to McKay's. It's an annual trip that I make. I love McKay's. I love just the vibes and just the process for everything. It's one of my favorite places ever. So without further ado, these are all the books that I am taking with me on my trip to McKay's and hoping to never see again. Off the jump, some of y'all are about to be really upset with me, and it's fine, but we have Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. I've talked about how much I dislike this book so much. I've talked about it on the blog. I've talked about it on the podcast twice. I might have even talked about it on Instagram, I don't remember, but I cannot with this book. Like, I genuinely cannot. I was fighting for my life to get to the ending of this book. Next one, we have Tell Me Three Things by Julie Buxbaum. I talked about this book in my Emboss My Books With Me when I went through my library, and I kind of just decided this was a great book when I was young and like a teenager, but it's time for me to say goodbye to this. It would be probably like okay for me to keep this for my teenage daughter, but then she'd be like, this is freaking ancient. And I'd be like, actually, you're right. Next up, we have Next to You by Hannah Bonham Young. I really wanted to like this book because of the cover, because she's beautiful, he's attractive, and just everything about it. Something though, I don't know what it is. It was just very like meh. Like, it was a nice read. There was a certain like immaturity to Lane that I kind of found annoying at times. This was nowhere near like super bad. It just honestly was like kind of boring and got to be just a little like meh. Oh, this next one, y'all are gonna be ready to fight me, and it's fine. It's fine. Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. The girlies love this book, and I understand why. Don't yell at me. Justin is a beautiful man. Abby Jimenez, and I talked about this on the blog, she is so good at writing men. She's one of the best authors when it comes to writing men. However, I don't think this book was memorable. There is like a mental health element to it. It just was very not memorable to me. It just didn't hold me. I did like when all of the books leading up to Just for the Summer collided, so Yours Truly and Part of Your World. All right, and then we have Things We Left Behind by Lucy Score. I read the entire Knock 'Em Out series. This was the one that most people, if not everyone, was like, this is the best one. That one I really don't get, because I don't know, I'm just not into the like grumpy sunshine when it's to the extreme that it was with Lucien and Sloane. And I also feel like there wasn't legit character development with Lucien. I feel like he just did a random 180 and everyone just kind of accepted it, and I was just like, speaking of the Knock 'Em Out series, before I read that one, I did read Things We Hide From the Light. I also do have Things We Never Got Over, but that's one that I actually liked, and it's one that a lot of people don't like, but I liked it, and so it's in my office. But Things We Hide From the Light, I just know. The more, it's funny, and probably a little messed up, but the more I read Lucien and Sloane's story and Things We Left Behind, the more I liked this one. But it's still not something that I would reread or just be like, oh, I'm absolutely in love. Like, they were so dependent, and it was like uncomfortable, and it made me kind of just question, like, who are you without the other person? Like, why are you so reliant on the other person? You know, finding the dog and everything was super cute, and you know, just the criminal side of it. There was like the smallest bit of like police, not really police brutality, but just kind of like the things that happen in our justice system. Basically the whole idea of like, not every cop is a bad cop, like that kind of shows up in here, but there also is a bad cop in here, which I did honestly appreciate, because it's something that needs to be addressed. And I do think that Lucy Score did a really good job of addressing it in this book. I honestly forgot that this was even a book that I read. I'm not gonna hold you, but it's another Lucy Score book. It is The Christmas Fix. I think we finished this Christmas of last year, but by that point I had taken the McKay's trip. It's actually not a bad book. It's definitely a lot smaller than the previous two Lucy Score books that I showed you. It genuinely was like pretty good for what it was. It was very Hallmarky until sex entered the chat. to be honest. I don't know if I need to like blur that word out or bleep it out or whatever, but like just, I mean, it's a part of life. Sorry, I'm not flipping you off. There was cake in my nail. Then it became like super raunchy to the point where it was like disgusting and kind of uncomfortable. But I loved the overall concept of this story and the plot, and everything about it was just actually really, really great. The progression of the characters falling in love and everything in between, I absolutely loved. But once we hit that moment with like the freaking trailer, movie trailer, production trailer, whatever, and like girl literally being like scooted across the floor, I was like, this is kind of disgusting. All right, and then we have Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. I don't know if it's been literally like since January since I've read this book, so I don't remember how much I've talked about how much I did not like this book. I'm pretty sure that I talked about it on the podcast, but I'm just here to literally repeat what I said. I really was excited about reading this book because our female lead is an interior designer and then our male lead is an architect. And if you don't know, because you're new to this channel or you're new to who I am, my degree is in interior architecture. I love interior design. So I was like, oh, I'm very excited to read this. I'm gonna eat it up, but no. Then we have Unfinished by Priyanka Chopra Jonas. This is a book that I honestly thought I was gonna keep forever, but now that I've read other memoirs, I don't think this is a memoir that I'm gonna like really read again. This next book is gonna have everyone like super unhappy with me. Chill. It's funny that I said unhappy because the next book is Happy Place. I didn't read this year. I read it like when it initially came out, which I think was last year. And this is like no means a bad book, okay? Emily Henry, the only bad book she's written is People Who Meet on Vacation. I've already had my slander with that, so I'm not gonna do it in this video. However, with Happy Place, it was so friendship focused and it was super cute, but like I didn't really fall in love with like the romantic element of it that I like have with Book Lovers and Funny Story and Beach Read. And it's not that I'm really disappointed about it, it's just I know that without that big strong element, I'm not really gonna want to read this again. You know what isn't a good book and I'm ready to get rid of? Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. I did not like anything about this book at all. It was just bad. I don't know what else to say besides the fact that it's a book basically about Black fetishism, but the way our female lead is portrayed doesn't make any sense because she's supposed to be this very intelligent person, but yet she sounds super unintelligent, and it's very stereotype heavy, which is very annoying. Another book that I absolutely did not like was Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo, and I honestly, it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny because we have, I don't know if other states have this. I never really paid attention in high school as far as if we had it, but there's this thing called like Battle of the Books that we have. And one of the books that we have on our Battle of the Books list is a book by Elizabeth Acevedo. It's not this one, but it's by this author. And I both love and hate when the kids are like, oh, like, what do you think? Or like, what should I read? Like, I love sharing my opinion, but I literally told the kids, I was like, I've not read a good book by Elizabeth Acevedo. And so they're like kind of waiting until the very like last minute to pick up that book that they have to read for Battle of the Books. And I think it's like kind of hilarious. And I feel like kind of bad, but I'm gonna be honest. This is the only book that I've read by her and it's not good. Then we have Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I have been reading, I thought this book came out 3 years ago because it feels like it's been that long of me reading it, but it actually came out in 2022. So it's only been 2 years of me reading this book, but I can finally say that I'm done. I just stepped on a dead book. I can finally say that I'm done and I can get rid of it. It is very unique for our time. I understand this being a book club book for other book clubs, and I totally honestly even recommend that. But I'm happy that I've read it, so if my friend decides to suggest it for book club, I can be like, absolutely not. Small pause from all the fiction. I have some cookbooks that are in this stack. First up, we have Big Little Recipes. These are all things that I kind of like shared and talked about when I went through and embossed my books and went through my library. So I'm not gonna spend too much time on the cookbooks, but the things as far as like this cookbook, what I liked about it is the fact that it was like recipes that required like not a lot of ingredients, but the ingredients that it requires are so freaking expensive. I was like, no. And then I talked about this one as well. It is Chrissy Teigen's Cravings All Together. And then lastly, we have Cooking Light Annual Recipes 2006. I thought that I was gonna read this and like check it out, but I can't. It reminds me, not in a bad way or anything, but it reminds me of like all of the cookbooks that my grandmother has. And that's not horrible by any means, but my grandmother's still alive. So if I wanted the recipes that she has, I could just call her. She's actually been emailing me recipes. All right, next book. You are also going to be upset with me, but I'm okay with it. It is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I read this before I read Just for the Summer, which is how I was able to make the connections I made. This book is by no means bad. It's just, once again, it's not to consistently compare everything to yours truly. It's just that book was so freaking good and so well written that like you couldn't help but fall in love. Again, Abby Jimenez is amazing at writing men. Daniel is absolutely beautiful. The age gap is wonderful, and I love that the age gap doesn't play like a super big role in this book. It's more so about like just a crazy abusive husband and finding yourself after that. I don't even think he was her husband. I think Neil was just her boyfriend or something like that. But just finding yourself after that, I think is beautiful. It's about going from city to country and honestly fighting against just what was destined to be your legacy or whatever the case may be. I realized that this is a book that I'm just not gonna pick up again. Next up, we have One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle. This was not horrible by any means. It was a very, I hate to say average, but it was a very average book. It wasn't bad, it wasn't good, and it was more fiction than it was romance, which is really, really great. It's more about discovering oneself and kind of just like grieving and mourning after losing a loved one, someone that you were super, super close to, and just kind of trying to find yourself after they passed. So I really loved that element to it. I love how it wasn't a romance. It's completely different from a lot of the books that I'm showing you, but it just wasn't my favorite. Then we have Girl Boss by Sophia Amoruso. I read this in my 24-hour readathon video because it's just been on my TBR for forever, and I thought it would help me with like bossing up and being a girl boss and blah, 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 blah. Didn't do that. And she doesn't even own Nasty Gal anymore. So when I say this book is incredibly irrelevant, it is incredibly relevant. And the same 24-hour readathon challenge, I read Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood, which she gave us a warning about is an incredibly different book for her. I don't even mind that this book is so spice heavy, sex heavy, whatever. Rue was kind of insufferable for me. I really, really liked Eli, and I love that we got Eli's point of view in first person. And Rue being in third person, again, it never like really bothered me. It's just her character, like her as a character. I was like, I can't. Next book I have is another Ali Hazelwood book. It's Love on the Brain. This is my friend's favorite book as far as like the super STEM ones go. I don't hate this book, actually. It's really, really good. The ending was not what I anticipated. I was very confused. I was a little puzzled. But this isn't a book that, again, I feel like I'm gonna pick up. There was parts of it that I got really annoyed with as far as just the characters go. And again, it's just a maturity thing. I feel like if I'm going to read like a young adult book or an adult romance or whatever you want to call it, contemporary romance, blah, 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 I feel like if you're an adult, you need to act like an adult. You need to have maturity about you. And with some of the characters that just in the books that I've been reading in general, when there is like a very big, obvious, annoying immatureness about them, I don't want to keep going. But of course, I'm going to force myself to keep going. Then we have The Dating Dare by J.C. Lee. This is by no means a bad book. It's actually very, very cute. And I love that our main characters are both Korean. And I have like no beef with this book. I'm not going to read this book again. Going back to Ali Hazelwood for about 0.2 seconds, we have The Love Hypothesis. I also read this year. I kind of went backwards with reading the books. I've talked about it before, where I read Love Theoretically, then I read Love on the Brain, then I read The Love Hypothesis. You cannot tell me with the description of this guy, I think his name is this the one? Who am I? Adam? Yeah, see, if I don't remember the dude's name, but the description of Adam and the description of Levi in the other book, like they're basically the same. They're both very dark-haired, tall guys. It's giving the same energy, except this is written in third person and Love on the Brain is written in first person if you are particular about that stuff. Then we have Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, which we've talked about as far as like how much I disliked it. Haven't read Wildfire and I haven't read Daydream. I don't honestly think that I'm gonna read either one of those. I'm just truly not interested. I'm not gonna hold you. Yeah, everyone has talked about how this book looks incredibly innocent, but is actually super heavy when it comes to the sex, especially in the beginning. And then it randomly decides to get a plot, but the plot's a little bit boring because it's about like skating and ice hockey and all that jazz. No, ma'am. And then lastly, so excited to get rid of this book. I'm ready to get out of my sight. It's Twisted Love by Anna Wong. I've talked about this before, how I don't understand how this book or this series has any hype. I don't understand why Sam's Club is selling all 4 copies of this series, but it's here. I read it. I flew through it because it was just so uncomfortable and it was so bad. And again, it was like grumpy Sunshine, but to an extreme, to the point where like Sunshine seemed a little dense and Grumpy was a little too much, and just the dirty talk and the conversation when they are doing the nasty was not it. It was not the move, and it was also me being the annoyingly particular person that I am, even though I literally mess up my words all the time, but I spotted so many grammar and spelling errors in this book that I was like about to lose my marbles. I honestly should have been an English teacher. Like, what am I doing? I don't know. Okay, we did it. Those are all the books that I am taking with me to McKay's and I'm hoping to never see again, besides on the bookshelves for other people to accidentally buy and be like, oh, that one girl on the internet was right. Of course, this is part one to a kind of two-part situation. These are the books that I'm getting rid of, and the next video will be all the books that I bought from McKay's. I don't know how many books I'm gonna buy. I'm so excited though. The bank account is ready for the damage. I do have my McKay's cash saved up, and the trip is gonna be had, and I'm very, very ready for it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you stayed until this point, you're absolutely insane, but I love you for it. There is a creepy man walking across the grass behind my apartment, so I'm gonna go. Okay.